Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It's Wednesday, the 20th of May. I'm your host, Juliette Sali. Well, the local market is set to open lower by around 0.5%. This comes after global stocks eased as US bond yields surged amid a global market sell-off in longer-dated bonds driven by war-related inflation concerns. The S&P 500 and tech-heavy Nasdaq fell for a third consecutive session as investors locked in profits following a sharp rally that began in late March. Markets also weighed the risk that the Federal Reserve's next move could be to raise interest rates if inflation remains elevated. 6 of the 11 major S&P 500 sectors ended lower, with tech and communications providing the biggest index points drags on the benchmark index. Materials, the biggest sector decliner, falling nearly 2.3%. And we saw the defensive healthcare sector lead gains with a rise of around 1%. The retreat came despite a Bank of America monthly survey of global fund managers, which showed investors remain firmly in it to win it, with equity allocations posting a record jump and cash holdings falling sharply as optimism over earnings growth and higher interest rates surged. Investors are waiting anxiously for AI chip leader Nvidia to report quarterly results after the bell on Wednesday. Shares fell ahead of earnings, weighing down the broader semiconductor sector on profit-taking following its recent massive rally. Home Depot shares, though, rose after beating Wall Street profit forecasts. However, same-store sales metrics missed some analyst expectations. Akamai Technologies fell more than 6% after the cybersecurity company announced a $2.6 billion convertible note offering. And Verisk Analytics surged by around 20% before falling just slightly lower into the close following a strong after-hours earnings report. Well, US President Donald Trump has indicated the United States could still strike Iran, revealing he'd come within an hour of approving military action before delaying a decision. The comments came a day after Trump said he'd paused plans to resume hostilities following a fresh proposal from Tehran aimed at ending the US-Israeli conflict. The president went on to say he was an hour away from making the decision to, quote, go today. Well, the yield on the benchmark 10-year Treasury note surged to as high as 4.687%, its highest since January 2025. The 30-year Treasury bond yield, which is seen as a barometer of political risk, climbed to 5.197%, its highest in 19 years. The US dollar rose in part because of higher yields driven by inflation fears and uncertainty over how new Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh will respond if price pressures continue to accelerate. Well, gold prices fell by more than 1% on that firmer US dollar, and as persistent inflation fears keep interest rate hike expectations and Treasury yields high. Spot gold hovering just above $4,500 an ounce by the end of the session after falling earlier to its lowest level since March 30. Brent crude prices held above $110 a barrel, with prices elevated on supply concerns, fanning concerns of rising global inflation as fuel costs surge. And Bitcoin was holding just under $77,000 a coin. Well, there's very little on the data docket today, but over in Japan, March balance of payments data is due, and locally results expected from James Hardie, Argo Investments, Catapult Sports and Webjet. Ausbiz will be speaking with executives from Catapult and Serco. Among the companies holding AGMs include Resolute Mining, Sigma Healthcare and Stanmore Resources. That does it for the day ahead. I'm Juliette Sali. We'll see you tomorrow.